Ex Machina is the directorial debut of Alex Garland, the screenwriter of such science fiction fare as Sunshine, 28 Days Later, and Dread, and his latest work stars Domnhall Gleeson, Alicia Vikander, and Oscar Isaac in a mesmerizing, intelligent piece of sci-fi storytelling. Ex Machina, which is also written by Garland, tells the story of a young man named Caleb, a programmer who's selected and invited by his employer, the reclusive genius billionaire Nathan, to administer the Turing test to his latest creation named Ava, an android with artificial intelligence. This straightforward premise gives way to an abundance of complex issues and themes that not only challenge these three characters, but challenges us, the viewers, as well. Now, there's a lot to delve into and admire in this film, and with that in mind, I'm going to issue a spoiler warning for those of you who have not seen this film. And if you haven't seen it, you need to stop this video and go ahead and handle that right now. Otherwise, if you've seen it or just don't care about spoilers, hey, let's get into it. The film begins with Caleb sitting at his desk at work, rejoicing over winning an in-house lottery for an opportunity to meet the mysterious boss of his company, and right from the start, there's a subtle sense of uneasiness. We see Caleb's face from the perspective of his computer screen, which happens to be scanning and reading his facial expressions without his knowledge. As we will soon realize, the unassuming programmer has been selected for a reason, for purposes that extend deeper than a simple week-long testing session. As Caleb travels to and arrives at Nathan's home/compound/research facility, located at an unknown and remote region of the world, the settings also convey a striking duality. From the vast frozen landscapes and high mountains to the lush green forests and waterfalls, all of which are juxtaposed with the slick, modernized austerity of Nathan's lair. Both types of settings serve as a natural representation of Ava, the coldness of a machine with the warmth of humanity underneath. I also want to note that the very setting of Nathan's home/facility communicates the hidden agendas and secrecy of the characters in a wonderfully subtle way. For example, all of the lighting in the building is recessed and hidden, bleeding out of wall panels and glowing behind floors and ceilings. We don't see any bulbs. Also, let's take a look at Ava's room, which is where Caleb administers the Turing test to determine Ava's humanity, so to speak. Ava is the subject, or rather the prisoner, as she has never left her rooms or cell. Yet she has a fairly large amount of space to move around freely. Caleb, on the other hand, talks to Ava from behind a tiny glass booth, with only a single door as his way in and out. Really, all he can do is just stand and sit. Yet he's in charge. After watching the film, you eventually ask yourself, who is the real test subject? More on this later. Looking at the characters of Caleb, Nathan, and Ava, two things that stand out is how these three individuals are presented and relate not only to each other, but how both men relate to the female android that is their test subject. For example, Nathan is a juxtaposition in and of himself. His background in computing, having at the age of 13 designed a code that formed the basis of his very own company Blue Book, which is a Google/Facebook-esque corporation, along with his life's work of creating and developing artificial intelligence and his enormous wealth, would lead one to label him as the archetypal nerd genius a la Bill Gates. However, on the surface, Nathan comes off as a complete dude bro, a muscular macho man who spends his days working a punching bag, lifting weights, and getting wasted on so much booze that his insides double as an organic liquor store. Plus, his condescending, sarcastic, self-assured attitude that comes from someone who has had a lifetime of being the smartest person in the room, who occasionally had to deal with the regulars of the world. Nathan imposes his will on Caleb as well as Ava with relative ease. To Nathan, Ava is just the latest AI-infused automaton in a long line of robot models, and Caleb is there to make sure that she passes his test. If she doesn't, well, just switch her off and upgrade her wetware for the next version. On the flip side, Caleb is just an average, mild-mannered 26-year-old whose own life story serves as the ideal backdrop for being Nathan's second component in the Turing test. Having lost his parents at the age of 15, Caleb knows full well the pain and anguish that loneliness brings. Single and living in a small apartment in Brookhaven, Long Island, there isn't much to Caleb's life besides his job. He reveals all of this to Ava during their second interview session, in which Ava notes that their quote-unquote friendship is one-sided because it is Caleb that is asking her the questions and not the other way around. Furthermore, it's during this scene that one of many power outages throughout the film are triggered, during which Ava tells Caleb that Nathan cannot be trusted. And this throws him off for a moment, and as he opens up to her, it's more apparent looking back at this scene that he perhaps was susceptible to developing protective feelings towards Ava. After all, his parents were taken from him at a young age, so here he has an opportunity to, I suppose, make things right, or provide a sense of normality, or humanity, or a vague sense of love by helping Ava break free from her chains. There are several reasons why Ava is such a fascinating character, not least of which is the philosophical and ethical dilemma her very existence poses to both Caleb and Nathan, as well as us viewers. Imbued with artificial intelligence, Ava easily engages Caleb in friendly conversation just like a normal human being. And as viewers, we bring to Ava our own preconceived ideas of what a real human being is like. Someone friendly, engaging, attentive, warm, inquisitive, attractive. These are qualities that we immediately ascribe to Ava, despite the fact that she clearly is an android. She has a female humanoid shape, but the only obviously physical human qualities we see are her face, hands, and feet. Her body is a svelte, curvy, mobile sculpture of gray mesh and transparent limbs, torso and head, which reveal her internal components, which softly whir and glow with soft blue lighting. She's physically the humanoid manifestation of Apple's core design principle of curved, smooth devices that represent the cutting edge with an inviting human touch. Now, because of Ava's situation, she wants to be free from Nathan's clutches and attempts to get Caleb to help her achieve her goal. We naturally empathize with her as the distressed captive and see Nathan as the cold, inhumane villain. However, in a South by Southwest Q&A panel from March 2015, writer-director Alex Garland stated that, quote, "We make a bunch of assumptions on what's going on in Ava's head, based on what she looks like and how she acts, but she's acting that way to trick us. She's a sentient creature that wants to be free." Also, in an interview on RogerEbert.com titled Beyond the Uncanny Valley, Alex Garland on Ex Machina from April 2015, Garland talks a bit about female objectification, something that both Caleb and Nathan do to varying degrees towards Ava, in which he says, quote, "The key thing about female objectification is that it creates a block that prevents you from thinking about what is actually going on inside the mind of the thing that you're objectifying." These statements are supported in Ava's third session with Caleb, when she dresses herself up for him, donning a short dark-haired wig, a colorful blue dress, white stockings and shoes, a very girl-next-door look, the picture of innocence or a closet freak. Ava's color choice is notable, as blue is usually considered to be comforting and serene. She flirts with him by noting his obvious attraction to her, his micro-expressions, as she says, and even goes so far as to say, quote, "Sometimes at night, I wonder if you're watching me on the cameras, and I hope you are. And your friend too." In the following scene, Caleb gazes longingly at Ava from his bedroom monitor, eyes affixed, pulse pounding. His empathy, especially his loneliness, is being exploited. Poor fella. Poor fella. Considering what we know of Ava so far, her predicament, her goals, does she feel that way because she genuinely wants to leave Nathan's home, or is it because she was programmed to simulate those feelings? It's the parrot problem. A parrot is capable of speech, but does it really know what it's saying? Is a parrot capable of abstract thought? Well, no, except for Iago from Aladdin, of course. What about Caleb and Nathan's conversation where they address the sexual elephant in the room? Why did Nathan give Ava sexuality? She's a machine, so she's not driven by sex as an evolutionary, reproductive, or recreational need, and plus, why was she created to resemble a female? She could have been, as Caleb states, a gray box, or some disembodied voice coming from a portable device like Samantha from the movie Her. Was she created just to throw Caleb off? Does Ava have real warm feelings for him, or is she really just preying on his insecurities and desires as a means to an end because that's how she truly feels? Or is she just acting automatically, simulating feelings of distress because that's how her programming and situation dictates everything? How about the question she poses to Caleb at one point? Isn't it strange to create something that hates you? Well, to be fair, people do that all the time. We call them teenagers or hipsters. Judging from that inquiry and her actions throughout the film, I'm inclined to believe that she's genuinely a sentient, self-aware being, not just a sophisticated machine. Calculation, manipulation, deceit, selective empathy, curiosity, are these not qualities that us humans utilize in some capacity each and every day? And if the questions raised by Ava's sentience weren't enough, what about Caleb and Nathan's dialogue concerning sexual orientation and preferences? Nathan remarks that he programmed Ava to be heterosexual, just like Caleb was programmed to be the same by both nature and nurture, considering his obvious physical and emotional attraction towards Ava. Nathan, for that matter, is also straight. He believes that sexuality and consciousness are linked, that one cannot exist without the other. Also, Nathan's sexual preferences are clear from the previous android models he created and destroyed prior to Ava. All tall, statuesque women representing various ethnicities. Which brings me to the fourth character in the film, Kyoko, the silent, slender woman who wanders in the periphery throughout the film. Her name is pretty apt, as Kyoko is a Japanese name. The Ko means child, and Kyo means respectful. We later find out that she, like Ava, is an android. However, Kyoko's AI is much more limited than her successors. She doesn't speak, nor seems to understand a word of English, and she functions as Nathan's housemaid / robo-concubine. There is one very interesting moment where Kyoko accidentally tips over Caleb's glass of wine when he and Nathan are having a dinner conversation about his first test session with Ava. Nathan explodes with anger at Kyoko's clumsiness, and Caleb apologizes to her and tries to play it off. In this instance, some questions come to mind. Can an AI make mistakes? If so, does this make them completely human after all, since nobody is perfect? Or is there more underneath her meek surface? Kyoko is essentially Nathan's slave, for lack of a better word, and seeing how his previous androids rebelled against their imprisonment, they, like Ava, were curious enough that they wanted the full autonomy that we generally take for granted. Coupled with Nathan's reclusiveness, we see why he created Kyoko to function as she does, as a way to further throw his douchey weight around. But again, she is an AI, capable of learning as well as inquisitiveness, and with that, even the brilliant Nathan can only enforce so much control. I also want to give special note to the performances of Alicia Vikander and Sonoya Mizuno as both Ava and Kyoko respectively. Both actresses are trained dancers, so the subtle preciseness of their movements, from how they walk to the way they turn their heads, gives their synthetic characters both an appealing and disquieting sense of humanity, the strongest examples of the uncanny valley. Nathan's ever so slight alcohol problem appears to belie his own ethical hang-ups. There are a couple of instances where he appears to lament over his developments in artificial intelligence. He believes that a sense of inevitability hangs over his work, saying to Caleb, quote, "One day the AIs are going to look back on us the same way we look at fossil skeletons on the plains of Africa, an upright ape living in dust with crude language and tools, all set for extinction." Caleb also quotes J. Robert Oppenheimer, one of the designers of the atomic bomb, who quoted the Bhagavad Gita, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Furthermore, before passing out from excessive vodka, Nathan mutters to himself repeatedly, "In sleep, in confusion, in the depths of shame, the good deeds a man has done before defend him." Perhaps Nathan's alcoholism is his way of coping with what seems to be a cold, harsh truth, that humans will soon become redundant in the face of the robots' revolution. Think about it. Androids have the best of both worlds. They have the treasured human values of self-awareness and emotion, yet they are incapable of sickness and mortality. Their only primary concern is maintenance. These concerns that Nathan contends with reminds me of other great sci-fi works such as Gattaca, which depicts a future where genetically modified humans receive all of the best opportunities, while natural-born humans are relegated to custodial or other menial work. Also, the video game Deus Ex: Human Revolution comes to mind, which depicts a future where biotechnology corporations capitalize on the growing transhumanist movement, whose members augment their bodies with cybernetic enhancements for both aesthetic purposes and physical superiority. With all of this in mind, why would Nathan continue with his work? Well, seeing what type of person he is, one unfettered by pesky ethics and reasonable caution, his driving force is the notion that, if not him, then some other genius would take the reins of discovery. Whatever happens, happens. It's Promethean, man. Isn't it strange to create something that hates you? A fair question indeed. If Ava is a sentient being though, imbued with logical faculties and reasoning, shouldn't she have a justifiable reason to hate, as well as a justifiable target of her ire? Certainly, the circumstances surrounding her captivity offer ample reasons. During the last third of the film, Ava finally escapes her captivity with the help of Caleb, and she and Kyoko turn their creator Nathan into a human pincushion. She then applies the synthetic skin of the previous AI models and proceeds to leave the facility, locking poor hapless Caleb in Nathan's bedroom. Interestingly, when Ava enters the living room of the facility, it's an inverse of Caleb's entrance from the beginning of the film. In both instances, there is soft piano music playing in the background, which sounds vaguely like John Williams' Jurassic Park theme. Both Caleb and Ava took their first steps into a larger world, about to encounter brand new life forms they've never seen before. In Ava's case, it's her chance to experience the world beyond the confines of her room. She's even dressed in pure white, innocent looking, angelic even. An ironic choice, considering her manipulation of Caleb in order to aid her escape. Also, this entire climactic sequence is preceded with the intertitle Ava, Session 7, despite Nathan and Caleb no longer testing her. So in the end, who was the real test subject?